What's up guys, Eric here, coming to you today with episode number 7 of Anatomy of a Playback Rig. Out here currently on the Benson, Boone, Fireworks and Rollerblades World Tour. And I'm out here obviously playing drums, music directing, and running a bit of playback. As always, when we can find time, I love to just take a second and give you guys a rundown of what this world is looking like today. But today, I've got a bonus for you. We are also going to take a look at the playback rig of our support act, Mimi Webb. Okay, so let's jump into it real quick. So, as you can see here, we've got our dual laptop redundant playback rig consisting of our two 13-inch MacBook Airs. I think these are like 2021 M1 16 gigs, currently running macOS Sonoma and Ableton 12. And they are running together into our Play Audio 1U redundant playback interface. We are controlling our playback, as you can see in these little windows in the corner, with my favorite setlist app, AbleSet. For those of you who've been following along, you know I basically won't shut up about this thing. I have no affiliation with AbleSet aside from just being a massive fan. I started using AbleSet just by pure luck, like 3 months after the first version of it was released. And even in its early days, it was the best thing out there and it just consistently gets better. So if you haven't checked out AbleSet already, ableset.app is where you go. And again, I don't get anything out of it. It's just a great product. It's just the best thing you can use. So just go do it. Discussing redundancy, you guys know that I have a pretty firm opinion on when and when not to use redundancy. And there are a lot of times when I'll have conversations with you guys and recommend that you don't do it. The reason for that is redundancy necessarily adds a very significant layer of expense and complication, right? You have to have a second playback laptop. Now you have to have a redundant interface, all this stuff. And the thing is, it doesn't actually benefit your show, right? The sound doesn't sound better because there's two laptops, right? So, but there is a time, and I know I mentioned this in every conversation I have with you guys, that there is a time and there is a place for redundancy. And that time and place is when the stakes of your show get high. When a failure actually would derail your show. This particular show is at that point. So in our playback sessions, we are running time code, audio out to our lighting desk, which is taking all of its information and basically sequencing and syncing up all of its programming with our playing and with our audio. So now if we have a failure on stage, it's not just a matter of like, you know, restart the computer, unplug, power down, whatever, power cycle, etc. Now I need to go, now we're like affecting our lighting world, and they have to do, you know, who knows, it could be like a reset and anything like that. We have to get back up and running and check our lines and all this stuff, and that's like a big pain. So this is a time when, like, for me at least, redundancy makes sense. That way we don't derail all of our hard work too much. Like I said, the only other area note here is I'd say we're using our MIDI out, you know, our MIDI out port, MIDI DIN out, running over to our guitarist's fractal amp modeler to run program changes. But, you know, that's not rocket science. I think that's something we've all seen enough times to know how that works. So, but we're doing it. Oh, control, right? We have a redundant setup. So we need a unified single point controller that can control both computers at the same time, right? Of course. So right behind me, and I'm gonna do a cool close-up right now, I'm running a Presonus Atom MIDI controller. As you can see, there are 16 pads on this controller, a bunch of other random ones on the side, and 4 knobs at the top. The reason I went with this controller is because I was looking to employ about 8 to 10 different buttons, different functions. Anything from your play, your stop, your next, your previous song. I wanted to be able to navigate between sections. Our particular show is very loop heavy. There's a lot of live looping, a lot of audience interaction, things like that. And so I wanted the ability to enter and exit loops. So right there, that's 8 buttons right there. And as you can see up top on my pad, I've also got, you know, buttons that control our dead stems and our dead leads. These are pretty much only exclusively used in like sound checks and stuff like that if we need to reference something or, you know, just run a song without Benson. But otherwise, I would have normally gone for one of those really cool, like compact, like oak tone style controllers. Those things are really, really cool, really well built and like just nice, but I just needed more buttons. And so this was the next step up. I also liked that it was backlit. I no longer actually like that. I don't think it's a problem, but when the stage is completely dark, it's just one more thing kind of like breaking the darkness. I might look into a non-backlit controller, but whatever. Now at that point, we're splitting hairs, right? Oh, and the last thing before I leave, as you can see on our pads here, we've got these like nice little decals, these like textured decals with different icons that just act as, you know, really nice, clean labels. These decals were provided by a company called Q's. I think you can find them on Instagram at Q's the Original. Just a nice little set of decals for basically any controller you might have, whether it's like a pad style one, like an MPC style one like this. They also make them for SPDSXs. And look, here's the bottom line of it. Could you put gaff tape on here and draw on icons? 100%, absolutely. It's not going to change anything. But if you're going to be doing it a ton, and you're the type of person who likes to just have things real clean and real pro, and just like, you know, real squeaky and polished, then this is worth checking out. You know, just that one little element that kind of buttons you up, just one, you know, just that top button, just makes it a little bit nicer. Cool. So I think that about wraps this up in my world. Now, let's head over to meet Charlie in Mimi Webb's world. All right, so now here we are side stage with Mimi Webb's playback setup and her wonderful engineer, Charlie. Charlie, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and take it away. Tell us top to bottom what you got going on here and what everything here is for.
So, hello, I'm Charlie. I'm Mimi Webb's playback engineer, and I have been for the last 2 years now, coming up to the 2nd year. I am responsible for everything audio and MIDI and programming on the road. So I'm kind of the main point of call for making sure the set runs smoothly, making sure that Mimi's happy every night. That's the most important thing as a playback engineer. It's not just press play and what people might think it is. You run the show, especially if it's playback side of stage. So it's taking that role and making sure the musicians on stage feel secure, they feel safe, and that the tracks and everything is working as it should every night. And it's really important to think that as well. So this is my world. We've got, I'll split it up into 3 departments. We've kind of got the audio rig here, we've got the MIDI and vocal processing rig, and then just there, maybe outside of the camera, which we'll show you, is the stage rack. And there's kind of 3 components, and I'll briefly go through all 3. So when I got the gig, I was responsible for designing the rig and thinking of how we can have a playback rig that would incorporate smaller shows like this, nice club room shows, but then out on this tour in Utah, we played 10,000 people, yeah, which was an arena show. So it's how does a playback rig that will always live side of stage, how does it work every night and be great every night and serve the purpose to the music? Mimi Webb's music is very pop. She's the pop queen, as I like to say, and we have a lot of sounds that we use from the record. So we were working out in a playback how to have all the music laid out, how the MIDI runs, and incorporate that, which brings me on to the audio rack. So I use Mode 2. I'm a big fan of Mode 2. There's loads of different interfaces out there that I use. I've got a Play Audio 12 as well, for different kind of shows, but for this we just needed a few more outputs. So we're using 24 AOs, A and a B, so for each laptop. We've got 2 laptops, as you can see here, for redundancy, and I have DI racks. You may not have heard of them before. They're by a company called Orchid Electronics, based down just outside of London, down in the south, and I love them. They work as it should, and it's just a standard switching DI. So out of this AO here, the top one, the Mode 2, which is for this laptop here, I run the tone as normal into the switching, and that's responsible for the redundancy as it should. And I know Eric spoke about redundancy and is it important? Do I need to go to like that next level? And my view on it is, if your show is vital towards playback, then I always would. And I must admit, we've done 2 years of shows now, headline tours, a really crazy festival season, and not one laptop has gone down. So someone might say to me, well, what's the point of the other laptop? If you build the session correctly, what's the other point? And I just come from it is, But what if we're playing some big shows and we've got a big show, it's important, and a lot of the sounds and records and all the drum MIDI and the guitar MIDI and the piano MIDI, if that laptop goes down, the show goes down. So if a show isn't as heavily playback involved, then that's your call. But for this, it's vital for 2 laptops. We probably might extend maybe a third, maybe a fourth, depending on where the gig goes, but for now it's just 2. On to the MIDI rack here. Of course, me being me, I have to have a nice little bit of branding to make it look fancy. But really all it is very simple. We've just got a network switch in the top here, and that network switch is based around every single connection goes into that network switch. It's just a standard unmanaged, I think it's an 8-port unmanaged switch, which the laptops all plug into here. So just here, we're coming out of the USB-C into an Ethernet adapter into the back of the rack. Both laptops go into here, and the Mio goes into here, and then also the stage rack. And that's how I create my network, so everything talks to each other. To run the show, I use something called Conductor. I know there's Setlist out there, there's AbleSet that Eric uses, and it is really, really cool. There's loads of different things, but this one just works for me, and I really do love it. It's by a company called Full Fat, and he designed this Max for Live device that just organizes your set. It's very standard, it's very kind of simple. It's really easy to use. There's lots of looping that goes on in our show, and you can draw in the automation for that. So it has some really cool funky features that I really enjoy, and it works for us. To control Conductor, I use the Oaktone, the Mini, and Oaktone and Full Fat actually did like a little collaboration together to where you can drop an extra little Max for Live device in front of Conductor, which it's just a drag and drop, and it works straight away. So we've got kind of the next, the previous, the play, the stop, and then the loop functions, and it works for me. So that's the playback. That's kind of a really quick overview of what I do. And then I'd love to take you into the stage rack world. So this is our stage rack, and we've got a Mio XL here. And this usually lives on the stage. Normally it's by the drum riser. So we have a TM6, and it's important to note that all the sounds that James, our drummer, all the sounds are within Ableton, within instrument racks and drum racks. And the reason why I like doing that is because James will never have to worry if he's on a patch or anything, because the sounds change for him. I know in some songs there's multiple different snares within a single chorus, and that's all done within Ableton and automated. So all of his triggers and pads all plug into the back of here with just a little MIDI cable into one of the DIN ports. But we also, what I love about the XL is we have some DIN ports at the front as well. So when we have a guitarist on the show or keys as well, we do patch changes for the Nord, and then we do snapshot changes, program changes for the guitarist as well. So this is a great stage rack because there's loads of connections, and it's super, super easy to link up with the Mio XM in the network switch. And how this is connected, which I think is really, really important, is over Cat5. So I've got a cable here, just a 50-meter long Cat5e cable. And for a show like today, I'm best part of maybe 10 meters, 15 meters away from where this will be. But as I said in Utah, I was 30, 40 meters away from the stage. And that means that the playback, no matter where I am, it doesn't affect playback. So and it's important to note as a upcoming playback engineer, if you're thinking, how do I get into the world of things? On a support tour, you kind of just, you'll be put where you can. You haven't got your own designated place. Well, look, they'll always find a place for you, but you could be maybe not in the most ideal place, but that's where you've got to be, and that's where you've got to set up. So in the Utah show, I was, quite far from the stage. So I didn't have to worry about, oh no, is my MIDI runs going to, connect all the way to stage? Is that going to affect the stage plot? Does the drums have to come closer to me? And that's a situation you don't really want to be in. So I always run my MIDI over a network. And yeah, this is it really. It's just a little 2U. We take this off, it lives in this separate case, and then lid just goes on. And yeah, nice and simple.
Okay, so there you have it. Two totally different shows, two totally different rigs, and you can see the setups differed greatly, but we're both trying to achieve the same thing. As they say, there are multiple ways to skin a cat. There's more than one way to skin a cat, whatever they say. Whatever, you guys know what I'm talking about. But honestly, that was really fascinating for me. I actually hadn't dove into Charlie's rig in that depth until this video right now. And I gotta say, man, that thing's pretty impressive.
It's great. I really like it. I know there's quite a few playback engineers out there using all sorts of different interfaces. It works for me. We've been touring that rig now for 2 years. Nothing's gone wrong. It's built well. It serves the music. I'm sure as the gig progresses, then we'll need to reevaluate whether or not we go, to digital, or we expand, we get more interfaces. The world's endless, the interfaces are endless. There's so much technology out there. There's no right or wrong way. That's what I learned very quickly. It's just a different way.
That's the biggest takeaway between our two setups right here is that although there are different ways you can do this, the important thing to remember, and I know I always stress this a lot in these videos, is that practicality. There's no limit to the amount of tech and complexity that you can introduce into your setup, but you have to know where the balance is in terms of what is possible versus what is necessary.
Absolutely.
And know that when those things are out of balance, you have the potential to introduce areas of instability into your show and complexity, and you have more points of failure, or you don't have enough and your show isn't served enough. And so you have to walk that line, find that balance. But hopefully today's overview showed you a great spectrum of what's out there. So as always, if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, etc., load up in the comments, shoot me an email, shoot me a DM. Of course, you can also follow Charlie on Instagram at
just Charlie Singleton, nice and easy.
Wow.
I'm always happy to help out. So if anyone has any questions about my rig, or how I went about designing it, or why I thought that, or why did you do something like that, just shoot me a message. I'm always happy to help out, because we're always happy to help out, and that's what we need. So
cool.
Thanks for having me.
Dude,
Pleasure to be a part of your YouTube, and I hope you guys learned something from me as well.
Thanks guys, take care.
Cheers.